Good morning. It is Tuesday, the 26th of May. I'm Maeve McMahon, and this is Europe Today. Your daily update from Brussels on all the news driving the day, live here on Euronews. Coming up, Russia has struck Ukraine with a hypersonic missile in one of the war's largest attacks on Kyiv so far. It comes as concerns rise in the Baltics over an ongoing drone crisis that even brought the Latvian government down recently. EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen and her defence counterpart Andrius Kubilius are flying to Lithuania today to offer a united response to the incidents. And more than 20 towns in France have recorded their hottest May temperatures on record, with extreme early summer heat reaching 40 degrees Celsius in parts of Spain. Experts warn that record May highs could still be challenged as the hot spell spreads across Western Europe. Meanwhile, in Spain, fresh allegations targeting former Socialist Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. A police raid has exposed pictures of luxury watches, bracelets and necklaces found in his safe. Zapatero, who insists their inheritance, will appear in court in early June. But first, ahead of her visit to Lithuania today, the European Commission boss, Ursula von der Leyen, has said Russia's public threats against the Baltic states are, quote, completely unacceptable. Her comments come as Russia says it will intensify strikes on Kyiv, calling on foreign diplomats and civilians to evacuate the city. For more on what exactly is going on, we're joined here in the studio by our very own Ukraine correspondent, Sasha Vakalina. Good morning. Just tell us first about the importance of the visit of Commission President von der Leyen.
It's very important for her to be there in the Baltics with a clear message that the EU is not going to back off under Russia's threats, which have been coming from Moscow regularly over the past couple of weeks. Just a few days ago, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service accused the Baltic states of Russophobia, threatening them. Then on Monday, Vladimir Putin, Russia's president, signed officially the bill that practically allows him to invade other countries under the false pretext of protecting Russian citizens and Russian-speaking population. Now, mind you, Maeve, this is exactly the same false pretext which Moscow and Putin used in all of their invasions of Ukraine back in 2014 with eastern Ukraine and the annexation of Crimea, and in 2022 with the full-scale invasion of Ukraine as well. That's something, these are the threats that we've heard already.
OK, Sasha Vakalina, thank you so much for that update. And for more on this, we can now cross over live to Kyiv, where Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya joins us this morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning during your visit to Ukraine. And as you heard there, Russia has relentlessly been hitting Ukraine over the weekend with a massive missile and drone strike. What does this say, do you think, about any peace efforts to put an end to this war?
Good morning, everybody. I'm talking to you from Kiev. It's my first visit actually to Ukraine, and it sends very clear message that democratic Belarus is with Ukraine, that our people are allies, not enemies. And Ukraine defends today not only itself, it defends the entire region from Russian imperialism, and Belarusians understand this very well. Of course, we welcome all the efforts of all democratic world to bring peace and stability into our region, but this peace deal has to be just and long-lasting, not just short time for the Russian troops or to regroup and start attacking again, and attacking again not only Ukraine but it also be our Western neighbors.
And indeed, you say you're in Kiev this morning, but Moscow is calling on foreign diplomats and civilians to evacuate the city, warning of more attacks. What is the situation there on the ground?
I know 2 days before it was harsh attack on Kiev. Last 2 nights were rather calm, but I'm sure we at any moment can expect the next attack on Ukraine. It shows that Russia, killing civilians, ruining cities just to put pressure on the Ukrainian government. But I'm so inspired by Ukrainians, by Ukrainian people, civilians. They are so strong. They are not giving up. And of course, it's a huge example for other countries, that you have to give to support Ukrainians in all the aspirations for freedom.
And meanwhile, in quite an unusual move, we've seen France issuing a warning to Belarus not to join Russia's war in Ukraine. But my question to you is, can Lukashenko be influenced by anyone except Putin?
Lukashenko and Putin have a symbiotic friendship. They support each other, they use each other, and of course it's illusion that they can be splitted. Lukashenko is serving to Russia's interest, not to interest of Belarusian people. He's ready to betray our sovereignty, our independence, just to stay in power. So please don't think that Lukashenko can be splitted. He will fulfill all the orders of Putin, but he's doing this against the will of Belarusian people.
OK, we have seen also Belarus and Russia carrying out military nuclear exercises the other day, but we'll leave it at that. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, thank you so much for joining us here on Europe Today from Kyiv. But now for more insights into what kind of missiles were used by the Kremlin in these latest ferocious attacks, here's our Jakub Janis.
While most of Europe was unwinding over the long weekend, this is how millions in Kyiv spent it. Russia unleashed a massive bombardment, one of the heaviest in a year, leaving nearly 90 civilians wounded and severely damaging residential blocks across the capital. But this time, Moscow has deployed its experimental, nuclear-capable Oryeshnik ballistic missile. And traveling at nearly 10 times the speed of sound, its range puts virtually the entire European continent within reach. So should Europe be worried? Let's map out the mechanics together. Whether launched from Russia or fired from Belarus, the Oryeshnik, flying roughly 3 kilometers per second, can physically strike Warsaw, Berlin, Paris or London in minutes. And now Moscow claims this weapon is impossible to stop. Because of its extreme speed, it is indeed incredibly difficult for current air defenses to shoot it down. However, military experts point out a key detail. It still flies in a predictable straight line rather than changing direction mid-flight, like a typical hypersonic missile, making it less of a superweapon that the Kremlin claims. But does Russia really need these massive missiles to rattle the EU? Not necessarily. Just last week, the suspected drone incursions ground the Lithuanian capital of Vilnius to a halt, forcing the country's top leadership into underground bunkers. And it all serves as a reminder that in Europe, war isn't a distant headline. Moscow uses these cheap grey zone tactics to test European security. So what is Europe's response? Berlin is leading the charge as Chancellor Friedrich Merz boosts Germany's defense budget to a historic 108 billion euros this year. And on the tech front, Anglo-German startup Hypersonica recently successfully tested Europe's first sovereign hypersonic rocket in Norway. But in modern defense, it is not about sheer power or distance. And as the classic philosophy goes, the greatest victories require no battle. The real strength of these advanced systems lies entirely in deterrence, ensuring they are never triggered. But while Europe is building weapons to prevent a war, Russia is already using them to fight one.
Jakub Janis there. Now moving on, the US and Iran say they are on track to finalise the terms of an agreement to end the Middle East conflict, which could include Lebanon, where Israel has been waging a war on Hezbollah since the 2nd of March. But now US forces have since carried out strikes on southern Iran in what they call are acts of self-defence. For more on this breaking development, we can bring in Euronews' Jane Witherspoon, who's in Dubai for us this morning. Jane, just tell us, what is the latest? Because the US are now attacking Iran just as these talks get underway in Qatar.
Good morning. Yes, the US is now including airstrikes, basically into its negotiating arsenal, pretty much to prove that it has the upper hand, but also, of course, pushing Iran into that deal that they want done on US terms, which is critical to President Donald Trump. Now, Iran are still to respond to last night's airstrikes. Meanwhile, in Qatar, they are firmly denying today reports of talks on releasing the billions of frozen Iranian funds, which, of course, is a key Iranian demand for peace. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that the deal with Iran is still being negotiated in Qatar, despite those US strikes. However, he did say that specific language in the deal may still take a few days.
OK, Jane Witherspoon, thank you so much for that update. And of course, we're reporting extensively on that on our website, euronews.com. But now we can move on to Hungary, where Prime Minister Péter is preparing to visit Brussels this week to seal a deal to unlock those 10.4 billion euros in recovery funds. They were, of course, frozen over the rule of law breaches during the previous government of Viktor Orban. For more, we can bring you now to Budapest and bring in our very own Zoltán Zsibósegi. Good morning, Zoltán. So look, Ursula von der Leyen is calling for tax and pension reforms in exchange for this cash, but Peter Mayer is not so much in agreement. How will they work through these issues?
Good morning, Europe today. So actually the main promise of Peter Magyar during the campaign was to release these EU funds. And he emphasized several times that they will take home this amount of money till the last cent. 2 days ago, he had a TV interview and he admitted that maybe it will be a little bit difficult and they can't get the 100%, but at least they will try. In the same interview, he told that there will be no holiday for governmental and politicians, workers, from the parliament, and they will work till the deadline. Because now the biggest enemy for the government is time. The deadline is 31st of August. And what we know so far, what we see so far, that Ursula von der Leyen and Brussels, of course, tries to help for the Hungarian government, but they emphasize several times that this is the deadline. They're not going to postpone it. And of course, there are 27 so-called super milestone, and they will not skip it. So there are some arguments between Brussels, how you already mentioned, the pension and tax reforms, but we need to look a little bit behind of this, because for years there were campaigns against Brussels from the Fidesz government. So even though people voted with overwhelmingly for TISA party, Peter Magyar has to act a little bit for them and show that he has power against Brussels. He can argue with them. They don't have to say yes for everything. So very probably this is the breaking point, what we see right now. And of course, we can't forget that still Hungary pays 1 million euros fine because of the migration policy of Hungary. So Brussels and Ursula von der Leyen sent here 3 really high delegations. They have the intention to agree with the Hungarians, but we have a lot of work to do in Brussels.
Indeed, Zoltán Zsibósegi, thank you so much for that update and for describing that tightrope that Peter Magyar will have to walk during his visit to Brussels. And now for the view from the former Deputy Mayor of Budapest, who now happens to be the President of the European Committee of Regions right here in Brussels. We can bring in Tudí. She's just back from Spain, where she received a very prestigious European prize from the Spanish King. So congratulations for that. And thank you for joining us here on the programme. But first, now that we have you, we have to talk about Hungary. As the former Deputy Mayor of Budapest, are you confident Hungary will get these funds from the Commission and be able to tick off that 27 super milestones that they have to reach?
Nobody can be confident. I think what we have to do as Hungarians and the Hungarian government, and of course all of the authorities, I'm still in the Budapest City Council, we have to do everything in our power to make it possible. This is what we can promise, that we will do everything that the money arrives, both cohesion funds and both the recovery and resiliency funds, both the grants and both the loans. We have the projects ready. Budapest contributed a lot with a lot of green transition projects, energy efficiency projects, public transport projects. So we try to do our best, but of course, it's up to cooperation.
Indeed. And of course, apart from the recovery funds, as you mentioned, there's 6.3 billion euros in cohesion funds for regional development that are also frozen. What impact is that having on the ground there in Hungary?
We are really suffering. I mean, it's not just Budapest is suffering a lot, but Budapest has been suffering in the past 16 years, and especially in the past years when cohesion funds stopped arriving. Because, okay, what are we doing from cohesion funds? We are investing in public transport. We renovated the metro lines. We built water protection, flood protection system, clean water, circular economy elements. So, and of course, all of our regions, and it's not just the Hungarian regions, all of our European regions grow and get stronger through cohesion policy. It's a very important mainstreaming tool of the European Union because how it works, it's a decentralized investment tool. It is designed by the local authorities, by regions, implemented by the regions, and it helps grow in the common directions of digital transformation, climate transformation, social cohesion. It's a very important investment tool, and we suffer a lot by not receiving it.
And just looking ahead, of course, European affairs ministers are gathering in Brussels today for a big battle over the EU's long-term budget of €1.8 trillion. We know wealthy countries want to shrink it, though. What's in it now for the regions? What's your stake here for the Committee of the Regions?
The stake is really high. We have been very vocal on all of our concerns about the new budget. Okay, what is the big concern? That what we see, two things that concerns us. That there is a very big wave of centralization because of this crisis mode, because this is what happens when there's a constant crisis. This is the instinct that you centralize power, you centralize resources, and this is what we see in the budget. So traditional, important European policies like agricultural policy, which is a food security policy. So it's not just a general agricultural policy. It is what provides Europe food security, so farmers don't stop making food in Europe. And the other big policy is cohesion policy, which is a decentralized investment policy, which is designed by the regions. It's a European regional policy. What's in the new budget? That the proposal disconnects the cohesion funds from the single market, although they are attached together, because the idea is that together we have the market, we grow together, we are stronger together. But how the world manifests itself, if there's no intervention, the strong would get stronger and the weak weaker. But we want convergence. We want everybody to grow together. This is why we reinvest part of the gains of the single market. This is cohesion policy. We fight for
But of course,
stronger
not everyone agrees with
policy,
you, and that's why the battle is just getting started on that budget. Kata Tutu, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us here on Europe Today. But now moving on to other news. In a speech that has gained traction worldwide, Pope Leo has declared war on artificial intelligence, warning of the dangers surrounding the emerging technology and the threats to society that it poses. For more on why the Catholic Church is getting involved here, we're joined here by our correspondent, Angela Scugins. So what spurred these remarks from the Catholic Church, Angela?
Good morning, Maeve. So this could be an act of divine intervention or something a little bit more choreographed. Pope Leo XIV released his major manifesto, something called the encyclical, on May the 15th. Now, 145 years ago to that date, a former Pope Leo published his own letter, which clarifies the position of the Vatican, the Catholic faith, to its billions of followers. Now, his letter railed against the Industrial Revolution and the harms to society it posed. Now, this Pope Leo warned of the major technological advancement facing the 21st century, AI. In this letter, he warned against the dangers posed to AI, particularly when it comes to the battlefield, warning that it can make war easier. What is very interesting is that the CEO of Anthropic, a major AI company, was in the Vatican on Monday listening to this speech. It's important to point out that Anthropic is in a major legal battle with the US government regarding its application on the battlefield. But let's take a listen to Pope Leo regarding his statements.
I've listened to scientists and engineers, to political leaders and public officials, to parents and teachers. From this listening matured a disturbing conviction expressed in Magnifica Humanitas. Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed, freed from logics that turn it into an instrument of domination, exclusion, and death.
And the Pope also likened AI to slavery. Angela, tell us more about this particular statement.
Yes, so in the 42,000-word document, he wrote, if technology promises emancipation, yet it produces new forms of global subordination, the fight against new forms of slavery is a decisive test for the ethical discernment AI. What is clear is that the Pontiff wants to be on the front foot when it comes to calling out AI's potential relationship with slavery. We're talking about content moderators that have to sift through a large swathe of disturbing imagery, as well as the children that are often sent to collect critical rare earth minerals that produce things like our smartphones and our laptops. What is clear is that the Vatican wants to be on the front foot when it comes to AI, stating that this should be a tool that serves humanity and not the other way around.
But of course, it's making regulators here in Brussels a bit nervous as they try to regulate, but also find a way to make this continent more competitive in that field. Anja Scudel, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, of course, for tuning in to us here this morning on Europe Today. Any comments on any of the stories we're covering or anything that we're missing, do reach out to Europe Today at euronews.com. But in the meantime, stay with us here on Euronews or visit euronews.com for more news and analysis.